Hi, friends, and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. I wanted to record a special episode. I've been thinking about it for a couple days, and there was a part of the day earlier that I didn't think I would. But I do feel inspired, so I'm going to try, famous last words, to keep it short this time. And as I need to head to bed, you can see I've just showered. I work again in the morning. I work days today as well. But this is the eve of the second anniversary from the time I'm recording. So by the time this goes live, it'll be tomorrow morning. And happy 2 years of the Living on Lemonade podcast. It's been it's been a wild journey, and I can't believe it's already been 2 years. For in one sense, it feels like I've been recording, for a while, but truly it doesn't feel like 2 full years. Now, there was something I was going to pull it up on my phone because I wanted to look up. I have the Podbean app, so it gives me stats for different things. And oh, I won't. Okay, hold on. Let me see here. It'll let me do 24 months. Let's see if it'll show everyone. Yeah, looks like it. So, what I wanted to do as part of this episode was just a shout out to everyone who's listened. If you're still listening, I just thought it would be fun to share. So, a little bit, I guess I'll get to that in a shortly. What I wanted to do was just kind of I've been pondering and reflecting a little bit today, knowing that tomorrow's 2 years of this podcast and kind of like what it's meant to me, and yeah, just kind of sitting in the gratitude of the opportunity to show up and do this and have people listen from all over the world. And I know I have some repeat listeners, and for that, I hope you can feel my heart. I have so much gratitude that you would take time out of your life, out of your schedule to hear my stories, to hear my journey and experiences and tidbits, and hopefully you there's some helpful tips for you in navigating life, in making lemonade from lemons, the lemons that life throws at us sometimes, even though sometimes it's sour for a long time, and we have to remember how to make lemonade or find new ways to do it, so that we can have that sweetness back in our life. It's not always easy. And when I think back to what life was like when I first started recording this podcast, my my dad had passed away six six months before. So now it's been November 11th. So Remembrance Day here in Canada is the half year mark for my dad's death. And it's it's very surreal to think that he's been gone 2.5 years. It's kind of I'm not sure how to articulate it, honestly. And at this time that I recorded the first episodes, I had just lost my aunt, um, about a month, maybe 6 weeks, 6 weeks before. She died at the end of September. And I thought, well, it'll be the 21st of November that I aired the first episode. So almost 2 months, about 7 weeks. Um, And since then, there's been multiple other losses. We lost a friend in November, a good family friend who was kind of like a another grandpa to me, Frank, and um, various other loved ones along the way. Of it was, I went through the darkest time of my entire life a few months into the podcast, and this is why I took a step back for a few months. There was a gap And I think from like January till April, it was just very turbulent. This was when all the aftermath of the unraveling of my dad's death was happening. Just some turbulent stuff with the family and in dealing with my dad's things and not having his daughters included, not having the opportunity to go through his things and having to buy his personal possessions from the auction. It's something that I think there's still a part of me that's um, processing that a little bit. So maybe someday I can talk about it a little bit more. As I was saying in the last episode, on Monday, there's some things that there's power in speaking vulnerably about it at the time, and there's that raw emotion, and then some things is just better to kind of wait till you're back on 2 feet and really kind of just have that understanding and wisdom around it integrated into your life. And I think that's one of those experiences because it was very, very dysregulating for me. And I I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it out of that darkness, honestly. It very much changed my the way I look at a lot of things, and I see the gems now through that painful time. But yeah, I guess I still don't maybe fully have the words for it. But I I learned to let go of a lot, and through these last 2 years, I can very confidently say I am not even close to the person that I was when I started recording the podcast. Um, 6 months prior to that, my life shifted immeasurably, right? And I think anyone who's experienced a very profound loss, it's like life before the event and life after, right? Um, and I've just been navigating it over the last 2 years, but if I can share one of the real ways I've made lemonade out of all of this is I have done a very deep dive into myself and some very deep soul searching. And I've been on a spiritual journey and um yeah, just following my soul and what I feel pulled to, those soul nudges, that intuitive voice, first to get me out of the darkness and now to find peace with everything, but also to thrive. I want to thrive in a way that doesn't bypass the experiences that I've had, but doesn't keep me stuck either. Because that was one of the things that my dad told me the day that he found out his cancer was essentially terminal, that they didn't think they would be able to try anything else and they ran out of time. He told me that he didn't want me to stay sad forever. He wanted me to find joy again. And that was his wish for me. So um, you know, I can say 2.5 years later, as I'm sitting here recording this episode on the 2 year anniversary of the podcast starting, I am in a space that I know he would be very proud of. I'm doing work, soul-led work, this very thing that the nudge started after he died, right? And I'm doing soul-led work that I know has already had an impact not only on my life in helping me to heal the experiences and um, come away from the things I couldn't control and surrender to it and find meaning in those very painful times. But I know that I've had an impact on others in leading, helping to lead their journey. And not to say they're like following a prescribed path or anything, but the metaphor that I've always had since I was a kid was taking my pain and finding purpose and using the tools that I've acquired through my experiences is like a big old flashlight. And to not only use it to shine a path for myself and going forward so that I can move forward and I don't get lost in the dark, but being able to look behind me on the path that I've just walked and reflecting back on it, getting the wisdom from it, and helping those who are on a similar path to me, maybe a couple steps behind me, and just helping to show them the light and helping them to find their way that feels best for them and leading them back to themselves and helping them on this journey because I really think that's what we're here for is to in the I think there's a Ram, is it Ram Dass, walking each other home, or it's some sort of phrase like that. We're just walking each other home. So that's been really the passion project here is to be able to express and share these experiences many times very in a raw way and in the hopes that it can help others. The way that a few people have really helped me along the way. So I wanted to pay it forward. And it just feels so organic. It doesn't feel like work. And when in the situations along this path that I have needed to kind of step back, I know that that's been okay because I've learned through all of this that we have to take care of ourselves first. And I always say, especially my network marketing business, if something's going on, I always say health and family first, always. And I stand by that. Um, and when we're ready to show up and we're ready to share powerfully and vulnerably, we show up, right? And that's all we can do. So it's yeah, it feels very, I feel very at peace and happy about the last 2 years. I'm excited to see what the next 2 years looks like. I need to do a big brainstorming session. I know I keep saying that. I was doing a bit of a brain dump. Now, what's coming to me right now is my Meet Your Soul course. I was supposed to start at like five, 5 days, 6 days after Darla died. And I had been, talking about it. I did a whole podcast about it with the kind of the essence of this container. And I'm no less passionate about what it can offer others. But what I realized was, um, yeah, it like there did it did feel like a little there was some sort of resistance there I couldn't really put my thumb on. And what I realized was the timing really wasn't right because I was about to be launched into a depth of grief that, oh man, like that wouldn't allow me to host and hold the space in that learning program container, whatever you want to call it, that experience that it is meant to be created and held as. So I just realized this isn't the time to do this course because I needed to pick myself up after Darla died. And obviously I'm still navigating that today. Today is 3 weeks since she died. And I was away with my mom for a couple of days earlier this week. I just got back last night. So I didn't record then because I was too tired, but I did think about it. And I spent a little bit of time. I spent one night at my mom's before we headed out of town. And we went through the, like, I got to see Darla's urn. It was home. We went through all the stuff that the came with, all that, the little paw print in the clay and the ink nose and paw prints and just the little mementos. They put some fur in a little like a little bottle thing, and it was just very emotional. And what I kind of realized was a lot of the depth of the grief is going to bubble up while I'm at my mom's where Darla lived and where she just that presence is felt. Uh, Being at home is a bit of reprieve just because it doesn't really feel any different than just being back home and my brain still thinking she's at my mom's. So, but yeah, I miss her. So there's been a lot of grief over the last 2 years. And what I wanted to say earlier about my deep dive into myself and the amount of work and things I've uncovered over the last, especially the last year and a half, is I learned and discovered and got curious without the judgment. I was able to separate myself, but I realized and was brought into the awareness of how prominent the theme of death and grief is in my life. I think is part of my soul's journey. I mean, it's gotta be. It's like, and it just feels so real, so there's so much depth, sometimes so much heaviness to it. But what notice and learn about myself over the last year or so is how much I identify with that kind of theme in my life and the ways that it maybe isn't serving my highest good. In that there are times when I get stuck in the grief and I feel, what's the word? I feel loyal to those younger parts of me. Like I still have to be loyal to them, but I have since developed new tools to help me just navigate and walk this grief, this chapter of my life. And so what I'm learning is how to just use those tools and not to bypass the grief, but to not live there like I used to. And my mentor, Marley, she said it just very beautifully in that part of my, I guess, evolution or my purpose is to really just find integrate the grief into my life and extract the beauty of what it is and help it allow it to help me to thrive and find more joy in my life. And that might sound really weird, especially depending on where you are in your journey. I'm still integrating it, but I do understand it. I just maybe don't know the full depth of it. I know that it's deep though. One example I can give you is even with Darla. I look at her death differently than I would have a year ago. I'm still devastated. She was like my little bestie. And there's, I feel like there's a part of me that I don't get to be anymore because of the dynamic that we had. Like a way that I acted around her, that it was reserved only for her. So I'm not only grieving the giant big presence that she was and her personality and just all that we loved about her, but I'm also grieving that piece of me that doesn't get to like be on the outside anymore with her. And there was no one else I interacted with that way, right? She was a cat. She was the only pet we have. So I've been really like feeling that lately. Um, Having said that, I've been reflecting about her life and what life was like because I believe that pets come to that hold that space for us, right? I talked about this in the last episode. Um, there was a place I wanted to go with that. Sorry, I'm like winding down. I'm a little emotional now. I'm feeling all the gratitude and just the depth of what the last couple years have been. So losing my words a little bit. So I thank you for just giving me some grace. Um, I don't remember if I said this in the last episode, but I've gotten curious and aware of how Darla reflected me back to me in who she was, and I could see parts of myself in her. And I also have gotten quiet and curious about just like how would I describe her in a nutshell? And how can I take extract the essence of her and live into it more fully? And Darla was a big presence, a big personality. Like when she was like animated, sometimes she's just laying there like a lump and sleeping and all that. But those who knew her and really like interacted with her and, gave her forced cuddles the way that I did, you see all the spice. You see the sweet, but you see the spice. And the thing about Darla was she did not apologize for who she was. No, that wasn't, she showed up exactly as who she was, and she was unapologetic about it. And I think there's just something to be said about that. And what I've noticed is one of the themes of the last few months, especially with this um, deep dive I was just in for a few months, is stepping into this new kind of evolution, this new chapter of who I am and who I'm meant to be, and getting closer to that like soul part of myself and separating a little bit more from the ego and what society expects me to be, and getting closer in relationship to what I came here to do and who I am as a soul. And a big part of that, like what I've been kind of incubating and working on, is showing up more authentically as myself and creating safety in my body and how I feel about myself and what's the world around me, to feel safe to express myself, to express my views, to express my beliefs. This wasn't something I could do 2 years ago. I was very much closeted with a lot of my beliefs. I would only tell people who I thought would understand it or I felt wouldn't judge me. And now I'm starting to really not give an F about it. And I'm kind of just like honing that Darla power of this is who I am. And not only have these parts of me, I've always been this way and just not shown it, but I'm also coming into and developing these parts and other parts that I didn't know about myself. So it's kind of like I know you can go through a period where people kind of drop off because it's like, oh, I don't know who you are anymore. And it's like, well, maybe you never really did because I didn't show you that part, or maybe we're just changing and growing apart. I've been okay with any kind of separation or people that have dropped off, and because I feel good about who I am. And I have this podcast to credit a lot. It's given me a safe space to show up and vulnerably share my experiences and, get a little bit of feedback. I haven't heard from many people. I know a couple of my close friends do, but if you've been listening along, say hi. I'd love to chat on social. Just introduce yourself. I would love to hear from you. Let's wrap it up here because I do need to go to bed. But I pulled it up from the last 2 years, the stats, all the countries. So we've had Canada is the top. I live here, so I've got my little network. I've got my network here. I've had 901 downloads in Canada. United States is the second one, 238 downloads. And let's break it down even. So Canada, we've had them across Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and 8 were unknown. So pretty much everywhere except for like what, Nova Scotia? Yeah, I think Nova Scotia is the only province, and then we haven't had the territories yet. So that's incredible. I'll have to get one of my friends in Nova Scotia to listen so we can cross that off. And in the United States, we've had, like I said, 238 downloads, which is so fun. Listeners from California, Virginia, Georgia, Oregon, Florida, Iowa, New York, Texas, Massachusetts, Illinois, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, New Jersey, and New Mexico. How fun is that? I think I've been to all the states. All these states, I don't think there's any on this list that I haven't been to yet. New Mexico, actually, I have not been in New Mexico. So if you're from New Mexico, message me. I want to hear about the good places to go. I have four states left in the United States: New Mexico, Arizona, Delaware, and Hawaii. Those are my last four states, and I'm determined, and like maybe hopefully the next, well, Hawaii might be further out, but I can definitely get Delaware on a trip. I've already got a trip planned for that. And then I'll get New Mexico and Arizona together as well, since they're right there. Um, what else do we have? I'll try not to keep you long. United Kingdom is the third one, and it's broken down by England, 102 downloads, Scotland 17, and Wales 5, which is so fun because I don't personally know anyone in Wales or Scotland, though. Oh, actually, I do know I'm sorry. I do know someone in Scotland, but I don't know if that's who's listening to my podcast. So if it is, hi, you know who you are. And I don't know who the Wales one is, which is just like, I think it's so fun. Next, after United Kingdom, is China with 8. We've got Australia with 2, and then we have Austria, Germany, and Italy with 1 download each, which is just so fun. So I have a total of 1,390 downloads at this time, 2 years in. I know there's lots of people who would say, oh, that's not many for 2 years, but I'm not here to grow and go viral. I'm here to grow sustainably in a way that feels good to me in whatever chapter of life I'm in so that I can provide good content, or I hope it's good anyway. Content that feels good to me, and I'm here for the right reasons, and I show up. Um, there's some days I do push myself a little bit, but I don't force myself if I'm in a bad way. Like when Darla died, I took a couple weeks to just kind of be with it, right? So yeah, that's where we're at. So it'll be fun to look back on, in a year's time or whatever, and see where we're at. We've also got the YouTube podcast that I finished uploading everything, I think, earlier this year, and then I've kind of kept it up. So I don't check the stats as much as that. I think we have 15 subscribers, so that's super fun. And yeah, it's been a wild, beautiful journey. If you've been listening at any point or you continue, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sending you such a big hug and so much love and so much gratitude. I hope that you feel that truly. Um, yeah, and say hi. I would love to say hi to you. All right, friends, I need to edit this quickly and get it scheduled for tomorrow and get to bed because 5:15 comes early and got a couple more big days at work. So take care. If you're listening to this right away, the monthly class is tonight. It'll be Thursday, uh, November 21st. It's on cycles and seasons of life. It's going to be a goodie. I've been working on my notes, so I'm excited to do that live in the Living on Lemonade Facebook group. If you can't join or you listen to this after, it'll be a new podcast episode probably next week on Monday, and the also on the YouTube channel, and the live recording will live inside the Living on Lemonade Facebook group. Come join us if you want. It's still I have posts every day of like intuitive practices and stuff like that. I'm still building the community. I know that it takes time. So right now, sometimes it feels my ego makes me, create stories of like, oh my God, it's taking forever. You're never going to make it. But what does making it even mean anyway? I'm just here to provide safe space and have conversations and introduce people to topics that they may not have been introduced or come by kind of organically otherwise, and create a space of more curiosity in the experience that we have here on Earth as in our meat suits as humans. So yeah, thank you for being a part of it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will talk soon. Bye everyone. Happy 2 years.